Hello everyone, welcome back to Herlefeld, a map in Farming Simulator 11 created by, and I gotta consult my little sheet here, I think originally by Tommy R. and brought to Farm Sim 11 by Roberto91 and Ceroman93. So my old notes tell me, who knows if they are accurate. Just cranking the map up here, and you know, I just released a video on this not long ago, kind of talking about the problems of running an older game like Farming Sim 11. In you know, I don't have the strongest computer. I've made no secret of that. It's frustrating at times to try to get this to run, and you know, more recent versions of Farming Sim, I've had no problems. But this one here, Farm Sim 11, and someone was explaining, here, let me see if I can get my combine going. There we go. Was explaining it had something to do with, oh, what was it? It was a post by Cornholio, I think, about, was it numbers of cores? Anyways, I don't remember exactly. I have a number of posts from him. I need to go study a little bit more. But for now, I have turned back on the distance, well, or how do I say this? The high quality settings, the highest settings that I can. And so you can see that, you know, things are kind of further out in the distance or whatever. So I'll give it a try. I know, oh shoot, am I not finding, where is the tractor that I want? Paint and chrome tipper, I think it's 6. Here we go. I have some grain to collect. And this is the part that is mysterious to me. You know, I guess we'll see here. I'm going to attempt to do a half-hour video, just like I have on all of these episodes, and we'll see if my computer is able to swing it. I've tried to minimize some of the other things running in the background, and so we'll see if I have enough things turned off, as it were, to make a go of this. But for the moment, we are harvesting wheat, and really, you know, this map kind of demonstrates, it's so interesting, these maps. This one here, it almost feels like I can't fail. Well, and in the days of Farm Sim 11, you know, when you came on here, you owned basically every field on the map. And when the mapper sets you up with all these harvest-ready fields, you know, such as this one here, the one we just harvested, there was another couple of them over here that had canola in them. You know, when they're all ready to go, oh, and corn over here, let us not forget. But when they're all ready to go, it really makes a perfect opportunity to just make a whole bunch of money. And maybe at the end of the day, when you're looking for a relaxing game, that's all we're kind of after anyways. The last episode that I was in here too, I wanted to mention, I still haven't fixed it. Here, kind of from a distance, we can see the autobahn and the cars zipping to and fro. I opened the mod that had those in there, and I think the problem, you know, when we were over there and we looked at the cars coming and going, there was some, you know, that appeared that they were half on the road, half off the road, or they were in the wrong lane, or whatever the thing was. They just weren't in their own lane. So, you know, when I examined the mod, as near as I can tell, you know, the cars are supposed to go right on top of these splines, you know, that the mod has. And the map author surely set them up in the map, although these don't come in the map. It's a whole separate mod. But would have had to have set them up in the map to conform exactly, you know, to the contours of the road. But the trouble is, when I imported them to the map, they don't exactly conform to the roads. Some areas they're dead on in the middle of the lane. In other areas they are off to the side. And so, it's one of those things, I think, that is simple attention to detail. But I don't want to sound overly critical of the modder. I think it's just simply cool that we have it in here, that it's an added ambiance, if you will, to the map. I don't know why someone wouldn't want to have it. I don't know that it steals too much performance from the game, so anyway, I'm glad to have it. And incidentally, I checked out the speed, the script that the author is using. I was curious, it wasn't the traffic script, which I was thinking it would be. It was instead the ship script. And we may all remember the ship script is the one, well, at least for me, I first noticed how it worked in Farm Sim 09. When you're starting in the main map that came with the game, Giant's Island, and around the island, are these ships that go. And this script has been carried forward, I don't know how many different times. I think probably even to the more modern versions of Farming Sim. And basically, the original intent maybe was to have it be for a ship in the water, but really you can move anything along the spline. And for the ship, you set it up a spline that you want something to go from point A to point B, generally in a circuit of some kind. And we're all ready for unload again. And then you give it a speed, and there may be some other constraints, I don't remember exactly. And I know in the series I did on the Feldy map, I spoke about this at length because I had done a lot of study of it. I had added some other doodads to the script, if you will, to get it to do what it would do. And so you can check out some of those videos if you want more information on it. But anyway, much to my surprise, I was thinking the mod author somehow for the Autobahn used the traffic script, which, for example, this car down here, I'm pretty sure is going on the traffic script, which is a whole separate script from the ship script. But I've used that particular script many, many times. I know others have too. Actually, even in this map, if I just get out of my vehicle here for a moment, isn't there... maybe I'm thinking of another map. Did this map... Aha, there it is. You see that big old blimp moving up the air. I would bet money that is also on the ship script. And, basically anything that you want to move around. So when you see a map, that has a plane flying from one point to another, or you see something like the blimp, maybe I can lean down and still see it. Nope, it kind of disappeared. I'm not able to see up. Or in this case, the cars on the Autobahn. Many times it is the ship script, even though there are no ships involved. I know when I did it over on Feldy, I was moving a ship. It was a barge in that case. The map didn't have one, and I had some fun installing a script, the design of the ship script is for an object to move along the spline continuously, a certain number of them, that is, and they just move at whatever pace you tell them to move. And I wanted the barges on Feldy to stop, so I added some additional functionality in there to get them to do that. But of course, these cars, all they need to do is move. And I think what I was starting to share is, the traffic, like we just saw, the cars, there's no other cars, they're pretty slow. And I know some clever modders have figured out how to speed them up. But the ship script has something directly in there where you can indicate the speed. And I know for these particular cars, because I just looked at it, they're set at 110. So I have a feeling that may be 110 kilometers. You know, as I look at them here, they don't look like they're going 110 miles an hour. Who knows? Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, 110, whatever that is, using the ship script. So at some point, I suppose, if it really bugs me, you know, seeing those cars off center in their lanes or whatever, maybe I'll try to just do some work on the splines and center them exactly in the lanes where they're supposed to be. And you know, I don't blame the mod author for, especially, I have a feeling the mod author was the same one who made the map. So by the time you get done making a map or making parts for it, I mean, it can be exhausting. It's a ton of work. And so probably the last thing you want to do is to, and this is some of the least fun of modding anyhow, you know, to do a lot of detail work. It's kind of like the detail work of a good map, you know, setting clip distances. I mean, it's not the fun part of the thing. So surprise, surprise, not many do it. But it sure can make a difference, you know, when someone does. Well, ditto here, you know, to totally tighten the paths of these vehicles to the road, you know, would have taken probably I don't know how many hours to do it. It's tedium. I mean, I learned that out on Feldy, you know, a new respect for anybody creating road paths. I mean, it's a lot of work to set the path of travel for the cars and to snap it precisely, you know, where you want it to go on the road. So who knows? Maybe they were just tired by the end. Oop. Go a little bit further. There we go. Oh, don't drop. Where is... I thought I saw the... There we go. Hey, I see there's a bottle right on top of this here roof. You'd have to jump up and get it. I remember this mod back in Farm Sim 11 that pointed the... I think it was a directional pointer that someone had figured out. And it would tell you how far you had to walk or how far you had to go to find the next closest bottle, if you will. So it was a great way to help find all them things. I think I only ever did it on the main map, and then it's kind of like, you know, I play this game for the farming, not to find bottles. So I've only ever searched for them, I think, once. But it was a few years later I made a mod myself for Farming Sim 17. What was it for there? I think it was gold nuggets. So yeah, I wrote a script to locate them, and I didn't use a directional finder. I used a linking mechanism where it stopped, where it drew a line between you and the next gold nugget. So more than one way to skin a cat. We are almost done with this particular field. And you know, by my count, I think this is the 10th episode. I think probably what we should do right after this field would be to hop over and do this one. I don't know that there's anything else particularly to harvest. There's lots of grass and that sort of thing, and I've kind of left the corn alone. There's some corn down over here. Like I say, lots of grass. I'm looking south. Oh, maybe I should pull up my little map. I can't see very far. I know there's some corn back over in here, but I've pretty well... I don't remember if there's any over here. I don't think there is. I think there's corn maybe here, and then there's this quadrant. I've pretty well otherwise harvested everything up here. We'll get this taken care of. We obviously took care of a couple fields here of canola. And then we'll have some work over in this area. Oh, I think there's a field of barley. maybe kind of over by the main farm, just over this hilltop. See, there is just so much available for harvest. You know, you can't help but make money, which of course is a wonderful thing. And I would at some point, I would say this particular map, I did a series on Feld E, and there was just so much to Feld E. And every map, of course, is going to be different. Every map is going to have its thing. This one here, I don't particularly know what its thing is, if you will, unless you say the Autobahn, and some extra mods, a BGA in here, that kind of thing. The original map, of course, didn't have that, but it doesn't seem to have quite the variety, that LD had in terms of processes and missions and some of those things. So, and there's only one sell point, and I got a bunch of stuff in storage. It could be sold. So really, I guess I would call this as just a regular. Oh, there's another bottle hiding right in there. This is a farming map. So anyone playing this, of course, is going to be interested probably primarily in the farming, because they'll get to do a lot of it. Not that LD didn't have farming, it just had so many other things to offer here. So one wish I might have for here is at least another sell point, but I don't know, at the end of the day it isn't bad to have just the one. Feldy had cattle and pigs. Oh, and also chickens, now that I think of it, that it had as part of the underlying map. This one here is by the book, as it were, just with the original game, with what it offered with the dairy. That was big news when that came out, that animals were finally a part of Farming Sim. And I've never researched Farm Sim 09. That's kind of the first version our family played. I really don't know how many mods were set up or attempted to set up that involved animals. I know kind of in the Giants Island map, they had a barn, I seem to recall, in the main farmyard. They had you sent hay bales kind of up into the loft. Of course, they paid you. There was no feeding of hay to your animals. Of course, for Farm Sim 11, that wouldn't happen either. In the base game, you don't bale hay to feed it to your animals. You gather it in a wagon. Although we put something in here on that, so I definitely at some point. Alright folks, I just had a crash and I'm restarting the game. This time I tried to do something a little different. I'm clear over here on the opposite end of the map from where we were, but I don't know if you can tell a little by the tree here. I did some work on the textures. One of the most common things in this whole map is 10 million of these pine or fir trees, whatever they are. And I went and I looked at the texture that does the tree. You can find that on the map. And it was 512 by 512 pixels. Just a single texture that covers all these trees that gets replicated, 5 million times. So I took it and I made it a texture 256 by 256. It ultimately is a quarter the size of the previous texture. And I think you can tell, maybe I should just hop out of, let me turn the light on. I think you can tell when you walk up to these trees, the detail just isn't there anymore. But I gotta say, none of us really are sitting in the trees, are we? When you look at it from this angle, I don't know that you can really tell. So, anyway, we're going to see if I last longer this time. So let me hop back to the field. And of course, I had to come in here. I hadn't saved the game, so every bit of progress that I had was lost. So I redid all of this below before coming in here on the save game. So now I think I was about here with where the combine was. So I'll set it loose there. And I'm gonna see if this makes a difference. I may cut I think I made it to 15 minutes of time in the previous video. I'll stitch them both together. But I'm gonna see, maybe by playing a little bit longer after I get through the video, I just don't understand this. And maybe I need to be in the habit of just rebooting anytime I want to play Farm Sim 11. Yeah, see, looking at this angle, you look at these trees over here, that doesn't look too bad. You know, when you pull it in the editor, I know it doesn't have the crispness, you know, that it had before. I'll be sure to save, you know, the previous texture. But I wonder if this, you know, will make a difference. Whoops. Out goes that. Let me see if I should have room in the trailer to hold that, and even if I didn't, no big deal. Alright, let me turn this off, and I have a beacon or something I can, there we go. Heading out on the road. We'll head down the road here, kind of like we discussed earlier, and attack the next field. Yeah, I mentioned earlier in the video that someone, Cornholio I think he goes by, left some comments in my videos. I think he was using ChatGPT maybe to try to get some answers to what causes. It's a particular error. I didn't show it on the screen. I'm going to edit it out, but it's the old bad allocation error, whatever it's called. And I just don't know. Oh, shoot. I'm going too quick, apparently. It's just kind of dubious to figure out what causes it did. And I think I also saw it. I don't use ChatGPT. I use Copilot. But I think it's something similar, that in order to fix it, or help it. I don't know if there really is a fix, because, you know, when I come in here, you know, look at that. I have 55-ish FPS, so it isn't like I'm stressing the computer that hard, you know, just to render the game. It would make a lot more sense if, you know, I was having, you know, FPS down around a 10, you know, a slideshow or something. But I'm not. So it just makes it all the more curious as to what is causing this. But anyway, one of the things both Copilot and ChatGPT said was to check the textures. And I remember hearing this before. I think in the earlier versions of the game it was, and sorry, I don't know what these stand for, but the PNG textures. Why is this going so miserable fast? Blimey. I know that stands for something, and I don't remember what it is, nor do I remember. Well, DDS is Direct Draw Surface, I think. Anyway, I don't really know what all that means either, but the earlier versions of the game used PNG, and then I think in the design of the game they started incorporating DDS, and apparently, I don't know how this works, but in computing, the DDS is apparently easier to render or easier on the graphics engine. I'm sure I'm not using the right terminology, but anyway, it'll still, you know, I think even up to the current time, you could still use PNG textures, but it's much better to use DDS textures, you know, when you use them in game. So, but you know, this tree that I worked on, it was already a DDS texture. So whoever made the mod, you know, was doing the right thing. And so my little tweak was just to knock it down by a quarter. And you know, it's a single texture that impacts all these trees. I haven't a clue if it makes a difference. So we'll just kind of see. You know, I got the clock set here for 15 minutes to see if, you know, I can survive, you know, to get the other half of the video. Yeah, we'll just see what happens here. Looks like I'm already full. So actually, while I'm up here, let me take this to market. The other thing I wonder about is whether having a bunch of hard objects makes a difference. You know, so many of these trees they're all static hard objects, meaning if you attempted to drive out here, you would crash into them. But I don't know that the player would ever be wandering around out here, so I almost wonder if I need to go into all of those trees and turn them into just visual objects, if you will, where, I don't know how to say it, not static, not objects, you know, with a collision, and that way you can still see the tree. It'll look just as good, but if you were to drive next to it or by it, you could drive right through it, and so the game, in theory, doesn't have to work as hard, you know, by rendering a collision type object. That's gotta be having a difference, or making a difference too, you know, with an map like this. So I think that's the next thing I'm gonna try. But you know, I had this problem. Oh, see right there, I just crashed into one of these trees. Huh? What the soup? Okay. Not sure why it isn't taking the crop, but okay. I guess I had to be in the combine. Oh, maybe the auger, the unloading auger, wasn't all the way out. I bet that's what's going on. But that's probably what I'll try next. You know, it does have a lot of these other trees, which I know came out of the base map. And those, most of them have collisions. I think I removed them on some of them, just kind of tree by tree. But I wonder, well, in this version of Farming Sim with the editor doesn't have some of the nifty tools that we would have in later versions of the editor, you know, where you could pick an object and then replace it, you know, with another object, which was really handy. You know, if you wanted to have a certain kind of tree and you fixed one up that didn't have collisions, and then you could use that tree and replace every other tree just like it. And it's really handy. I think those tools maybe come in, I don't know, Farm Sim 13, I think. I don't think we have the ability to do that in here, so it might be kind of a tedious exercise. Although I probably in order to do it, I could open it in, open the i3D file in the editor, in a text editor, and probably figure out some sequence, you know, that would let me replace it. All right, let me see here. Now, can I hire? Please don't turn. Very good. It's remembering because we did all these back and forths over here. Alright, taking care of business over here. Let me go hop in my vehicle and get on the other side. Yeah, see, when we drove in here, we just barely brushed against the tree here. And, you know, looking at the tree in the editor, by the way, it is a complex object. It appears to have multiple layers of collision on there, I think, to show all the various branches and what have you. So I'm usually when there's a collision object, the way the Giants do it, like this tractor, for example, and trailer, are a collision object. You don't follow every detail of the model, but rather you create a block to kind of overlay the model, kind of a rectangular shape, if you will, that kind of gets the job done. And I think it renders a little easier, and I'm a little afraid that these trees, you know, they're physics objects that, yeah, may go to every bit of detail. You know, another thing I could turn off in here would be all these fence posts. It's kind of cool having those as collision objects. You know, it kind of helps you. You can't just go wherever you want to go. I get it. But anything you have in here like that, I think it just makes it more costly to run the game. So, anywho, I have just a couple minutes left here to finish this off. And like I say, I mean, this, oh, he's all ready to unload. He'll probably get turned around. I'm kind of curious. I'm going to be cutting the video off here at some point, and then I'm going to do as much as I can off cam and see just how long it lets me go. Kind of like I expressed earlier, it's inconsistent. You know, there's times, and I have it right now even on full graphical settings, you know, so it looks as good as I can, even with the weak computer that I have. And sometimes it runs it fine. And then there's other times, kind of like we just had, where it crashes me right in the middle of trying to do a recording, trying to farm, and then I got to come in and redo everything, and puts me in a really good mood. But anyway, we are harvesting at least. What can I say? We have, you know, if I took in all the crop that we have in storage, how much is that, by the way? We would have quite a bit more money. Wheat, 154,000. Barley, 72,000. Let me see, is there anything else? Nope. Yeah, I'd have even more money in the bank, of course, than what I have now, which is plenty. So, at some point here, I want to start up the dairy. I want to use the place where we haul all the silage, the BGA, forgot the name, and get those cranked up. But there could be a lot of grass work, you know, in this map. But some of it's kind of a pain in the neck to get to because all these fence posts. So, you know, I mean, I think we talked about this earlier. Some maps are designed by the mapper, you know, to be friendly to tools. There it is. Here's my 15 minutes. Some are designed to be friendly to courseplay and that kind of thing. And then there's others where, and not only just courseplay, just having hired help. You know, because hired help doesn't like tangling on hard objects either. You know, it's one of the reasons the Giants maps are, you know, nice, neat, square fields for the most part, and nothing in the ends, you know, that can tangle the machinery or whatever. And then there's other maps like this one where, I don't know if this was the intent, I'm just speculating. It may be more, you gotta be a little more creative, or they want the player to have to do more of the work themselves. So, anyway, I'm gonna cut the video here. I'll have to stitch it again later and save the game before it disappears. Thank you all for watching. I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.